Good morning, everybody. I think this is the earliest live that I've ever done, and I honestly couldn't imagine doing it this early in the morning with any other person than Robb Murgatroyd. And I tagged him in this post, so I'm going to wait for him to pop on. I love this guy so much for many reasons. So, Robb, if you can hop on, we have to be on our cell phones to do this. Good morning, brother. So we have to do it cell phone to cell phone for me to get you on to the live. Troy, good to see you on here. So I'm going to wait to see if Robb is on his phone, and then we can make this thing happen. And what I love about Robb is, God, he's doing so many amazing things in the entrepreneur space with his podcast, with his mastermind, with his lifestyle blog, and just him and his wife Kim's businesses. It's just really incredible what he's doing. Hi, John. Good morning. And I have some funny stories about Robb, and I'm going to wait for him to jump on here because he's just such a dynamic person, such a warm personality, and just an awesome all around just human being, father, husband, all of those things. So here we go. I'm going to add him in. And I'm going to do a lot of listening and more asking questions. And I want you guys just to listen to him. And we'll see if
And just like that, here we are. I'm a little embarrassed to tell you that being the tech entrepreneur that I am, I didn't know that you needed to do a mobile phone to go live.
So you're learning something new.
I'm learning something new, but I don't like this under the face double chin thing. So I'm gonna have to get a couple of books. You're gonna have to bear with me, Boogie.
Oh, listen, walk and talk, brother. So yeah, there's two things we can. Here's what you can do. So you can stream from a Zoom, but I love doing it this way just because it's relaxed and it's comfortable. Robb, before we jump in,
yeah.
The first time that I ever went surfing in my entire life was with you. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh my God, I forgot about that. That's right, we did.
So this is probably about 3 years ago, and it was the first time that I met you and Kim. And we were, we spent the whole day together. I was scared shitless. And I just remember you just have this, you and Kim have just this dynamic personality, like energy-wise, and I mean, you had all of us just in stitches the entire time. And I remember even more. We went to get Mexican food after,
we did,
and some drinks, and I'm like, I know this guy somehow, and I don't know, like, because your voice is very distinct, your personality is very distinct, and then it hit me. And when we were talking about your backstory, being a chiropractor from, New England, and I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, Robb, I was at a network marketing event a couple of years ago, and this guy came on stage and was just dropping F-bomb after F-bomb.
Oh, I got in so much trouble for that.
I'm like, and you're like, yeah, that was me. And I'm like, that's how I know you. And it's so funny because certain events in your life, and this is just an example, you remember people like it was one of those moments, like you couldn't help but remember that moment. And but just getting to know, you and Kim over the years, obviously spending more deep time with you in the mastermind that we're in, it's just been an amazing experience. You both are just such incredible people. So why I love doing these Facebook Lives is that, a lot of us have mutual friends and a lot of us see what the other person is doing, but our networks really don't know how it's come about. They're seeing all these people doing these amazing things, but they actually don't know the story behind how actually things came to fruition. So instead of me doing more talking, because obviously my coffee is kicking in, why don't I just turn it to you? Introduce yourself to my audience, a little bit of your backstory, and then we can do some Q&A.
Well, first of all, thank you for that great introduction. I forgot about surfing. That was an unbelievable day and inspired me. It was one of the nails in the coffin to move to Southern California to really learn how to surf. So now I am now YouTubing surfing videos while I'm doing the elliptical at the gym, so I can kind of get the vibe in my head. And we are planning on moving to Southern California in a few months. So
I love it.
So super excited about that. Yes, the F bombs. This is an interesting thing. Because I was born and raised in New York, the F word comes out of me very, very easily.
Yeah.
And when I feel most myself and most comfortable is when I don't think about how I'm acting. In other words, I'm not trying to be anybody different on this Facebook Live than I would be if you and I were hanging out in a bar or a coffee shop or whatever.
Right.
But what I have learned through that process is that sometimes you have to be respective of the audience, but more importantly, the corporation who brought that audience there. Because when you have somebody that is not from New York and they're from one of the middle states, and perhaps they have values that are not exactly the same as mine, they're blown away.
Right.
But anyway, lesson learned.
Yeah.
So to answer the question, I've been a chiropractor for the last 25 years. I made a decision that I wanted to stop seeing patients about 10 years ago, and it took me 10 I'll go with freaking years to get out of the profession, because unwinding it was not easy for me because it was my primary source of income. I have a 4-year-old now. And I also have a 20-year-old. So at that time, she was like 16 or 17 when or 10, let's say 10 years ago when I wanted to get out. And it just wasn't easy for me. So I had to find different ways to get out. And every one of these ways, and we could talk about whichever one you want, every one of these ways has offered something economically to help, but wasn't enough to get out until this year. So December 31st of last year, I made the decision to lock the doors and pursue some dreams that I've always wanted to do. One of those dreams was to travel Europe for an extended period of time. And we've got a window of time before my 4-year-old, our 4-year-old is of kindergarten age. And I want to move to Southern California. So we decided to do both. So June 25th, we are packing up everything we own, putting it into storage, and jumping on a plane and traveling through, I'm looking at my list, Monaco, Mykonos, Montenegro, Dubrovnik, Rome, Lecce in Italy, Florence, and ending in Lake Como. Oh. And we're going from there to Hermosa, where I'm going to learn how to surf. So that's kind of like the high level.
It's amazing. And, everyone hears this kind of story and they're like, oh my God, it must have been so easy for him. Look what they're doing now, blah, blah. And it's all the stories that people create. And where you and I have a lot in common is that, it took me a long time to get out of my profession. I was in, the gym business, personal training and sports nutrition for 18 years. And it took me a really long time to, like you, lock the doors and really dive into what I'm most passionate about, for me is social media and coaching people and helping people. So, but let's go back before we go forward. Obviously, you're from New York. What was something that you learned early on in your life where you kind of realized that you wanted more out of it? So was there a specific person? Was there a specific event that kind of turned the light on for Robb that said, you know what, I know that I am destined for more and I want more out of life. So who was that person, or what was that moment for you when you were younger?
It wasn't a moment. I view this as the people that are in your life are either a warning or an example, to use a Tony Robbinsism. And my dad was the warning. My dad was an alcoholic who beat me and my other two brothers. And it was very, very painful during those early years growing up. I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, in effectively the projects. Our bedroom, the three of us lived in one very small room. We had to put our bicycles on the wall on hooks because there was no place to put them. And every night, my dad would come home. He was a truck driver, and he'd work during the days. He'd get up real early, come home about 3 o'clock, go to the bar, which was on the corner of where I lived, very like Donnie Brasco, and come in drunk. And sometimes we got it, and sometimes we didn't. And I knew as I got older that was not going to be my life. And it wound up not being my life. It wound up not being the life for all of us. My older brother's in Pennsylvania now. He is a lawyer who's about to be a judge. My other brother is a record executive for Clive Davis in Los Angeles, and I became a chiropractor. So all of us wound up becoming successful and escaping it. So we just knew that was a situation we did not want to be in.
And well, first, I just need to honor and really appreciate you for being so vulnerable and open. And I think that's something that is not easy for some people to do, is to really share some of the painful moments in their life. But those painful moments, those things that we go through or grow through, as people say, really start to shape the trajectory of where we're going to go in our life. So,
I'll tell you something, Scott. I lied about it. Thank you for the compliment, but I lied about it for a good, I'm going to say I stopped lying about it probably about a year ago. And it was very embarrassing. Let me tell you how much of an ego I had around this. I would tell people my dad was in the oil business. He drove a truck and delivered oil to people's homes. But I would tell people he's in the oil business because I needed the perception of having a successful father and being raised in a certain way to come out. And so I fought and I denied it. But then I realized when I started getting honest about it, that was the thing that people were like, oh my God, I didn't have a dad that beat me, but I resonated so much with what you said about, a dad that did this, or a dad that did that. And I just felt like, number one, I hate not being honest because it eats away at you. And number two, if I'm going to be in the business of really helping people on any level, then I have to be brutally honest, because there's no truth if you're not.
That's completely true. And we have a lot of other similarities in our personal life of things that we've had to go through. So, obviously you wanted education and schooling to be your ticket out of that that 2-bedroom apartment, that bedroom that you shared with your two brothers. And obviously you loved health and wellness. You ended up going to chiropractic school, and it took you 10 years. You were in the profession for 25 years. At year 15, you realized this may not be for me. So professionally, what was that defining moment where you said to yourself, you know what, I don't know if I want to be a chiropractor for the rest of my life? And how did you start to make the transition of getting out and really creating the life that you deserved?
Great question. And again, it wasn't a moment. It was a slow Chinese water torture. And it was like, the first 10 years was I could do this for the rest of my life, making good money, helping people, having the, feeling the proudness that comes with having a successful practice, and people that are coming to you to say, oh my God, you helped my grandmother and now I need some help here. And it was really good. I felt it hit a lot of my needs. But then slowly I started to realize that there are so many things in the world. I'm getting older. And there are so many things in the world that I want to be doing that I just can't do because I'm tied to this adjusting table all day long. And the monotony of, good morning, Mrs. Goldberg. How are you? My neck. Good morning, Mrs. Wasserstein. I'm going to make them all Jewish for you. Good morning, Mrs. Wasserstein. What's going on? My back. You don't know my back. And listening to, if one more person said my neck and my back hurts, I was going to shoot myself in the eye. And then I went, you know what? I don't want to do this. And then I had to struggle. The struggle was, but I spent $150,000 on this degree. I have a successful practice that's making $1 million a year, but I freaking hate it now. I'm bored. And that, therein lied the, am I, looking a gift horse in the mouth? Am I not honoring the degree that I had? Am I being, just somebody that is just wanting more but not being grateful for what I have? And so psychologically, it was 5 years of, just be happy with what you have. You can travel enough when you want. You can take time off when you want. But then over the last 5, I went, I can't do it. It's not worth it. It's honestly not worth the money anymore. I don't want to, I want to wake up in the morning. Like right now, I have exactly what I want. I wake up in the morning and I don't do any work other than Fridays where I shoot podcasts and do interviews like this. But I don't do any work until noon. And for me to have the ability to wake up and meditate and read and go to the gym and take a shower and then have lunch and take care of myself before I go into work and do what I want to do. It used to be that I'd be in the office and I'd have 20 patients waiting for me at 8 o'clock. And I have these thoughts in my mind of all these things I want to do. I can't do any of them because I'm working. So I hated it.
I could not agree with you more. When I put about 65,000 hours of personal training in my career. So, 18 years, 65 to 70 hours a week, client after client after client, and you become a therapist. And just like you said, I couldn't listen to people complain to me anymore about their body. And not that I love helping people, but all of my time, my energy, and my effort was filling everyone else's cup, and mine was always left empty at the end of the day. And I was just mentally and physically exhausted. And I remember looking out the back window of my house one day, and I started crying because I felt like a prisoner in what I was doing for a living. I could not foresee myself doing that for the next 20, 30 years. You hear Les Brown talk about it all the time, that, societally people are programmed to go to school, get an education, go to college, get a degree, get a good job, retire, and then die. And then, some people never, ever end up getting to live out their goals and their dreams of traveling and doing all those things. And I think that's what I love about you and Kim, is that the fact that you've never let anything get in your way. Going through a divorce, having a child from your first marriage, finding the woman of your dreams in Kim, getting remarried, having another child. Nothing has stopped you.
No.
When you had that vision 10 years ago, or even in 2006, when you guys launched your lifestyle and travel vlog, you haven't stopped since. You had a vision, you had dreams, you had goals. To go after them. That's what it was about. So let's talk about that for a second. 2006, you launch the travel and lifestyle vlog. So talk about how that came about, and really how has that catapulted you guys to where you are today? Because I believe that there's catalysts in life. There's decisions, there's things that you end up doing that really propel you. So how did that play a vital role in being the catalyst for everything else that you've been doing over the last 13 years?
Yeah, there was some exponential growth. There were moments that were inflection points. That's the word I'm looking for. There were moments that were inflection points that made it grow. So, back during the time where I said I started to get disenchanted and become unhappy with chiropractic, I needed an outlet. And it was around the time that what started to happen was people were reading books like The 4-Hour Workweek, and they were, getting excited about doing an online business or getting excited about, doing little mini retirement trips. And I said to my wife, I said, look, I need some time to reset because I'm just feeling burned out, dealing with neck pain and back pain. I need to do something else. And I really love to travel. I want to travel more. So she said, let's travel. And so I started to travel, and the iPhone, I think, had just come out, but there was no video camera, or it just wasn't great. And so we had like this little camera. So we started shooting video, and we started putting it online, and people started watching the video. And they were like, I love this trip that you took to Saint-Tropez. Can you tell me more about it? So then we started a blog. And we started gaining traction. People started looking and saying, this is a really great blog. I love to read it. And then they love the travel videos. So we said, okay, well, let's do a couple of trips a year. Let's do like 2, 3, maybe 4 trips a year. We'll shoot a travel show. I don't know if you remember Brooke Burke. She used to be on a show called Wild On. And we said, well, let's do like a Wild On version for maybe couples. So we did. And then we started getting noticed by hotels. And hotels said, hey, look, if you come out here, we'll comp your stay in exchange for a promotion. And then we started getting noticed by restaurants. And so it wound up being where this thing that I love to do. And now we're, I guess however many years that is from 2006, I think we're somewhere between 3-4 million views on some of these videos. And, full circle moment. One night we're in Greece, and this girl comes over to us, and she says, I follow you guys. And she said, you'd love my boyfriend. And I said, who's your boyfriend? We went out for breakfast, and her boyfriend was Tim Ferriss.
Wow.
And so Kim became friends with her, and she got Tim to call me for my birthday one year. And I've never met him, but it was kind of a full circle thing because that was the catalyst. And ironically, I'm using his Tools of Titans and Tribe of Mentors book to hold up this iPhone. So that's even weirder.
And those are two, if people don't have them,
they're doorstops.
They're in my bookshelf right now. I mean, they take up half of the bookshelf itself. They're like combined, they're like this big. So, I mean, that's amazing. And I really feel that there's really something into that, like kind of leading into the fear of, not waiting for life to happen, you kind of creating life for yourself, like doing all these things, and you can see all of these other pieces of your life falling into place as you just started living for right now. Because there's a great book that I read when I first started doing personal development years ago called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he says there's 3 types of people in this world. There's people that live in fear, anxiety, or in peace. People that live in fear are the ones that are, always fearful of the future, thinking too far ahead. The people that live in anxiety are living in their past stories. And then there's people that live in peace. And those are the ones that are living in the now, in the moment, really creating every single day the way that they want to. And I think you and Kim are an absolute pure example of that. So,
Thank you.
So, well, first, congratulations on everything. But let's talk about, there was something really interesting. When we spoke a couple weeks ago, I'm not jumping ahead, but your mastermind, I think it's absolutely brilliant what you've put together. Because it's a high level, mastermind. And it was interesting that what you said to me is that when you get into the entrepreneurial mindset and you start creating wealth for yourself and your family and the legacy that you're leaving behind, it's so hard for some entrepreneurs to turn it off, to actually give themselves a break, because a lot of entrepreneurs, they get to that burnout phase and they're so embedded in their business, in their brand, and what they're doing, that they never, ever turn off the faucet to actually go, not reward themselves, but to enjoy the fruits of their labor. And that's something that that you expressed to me that some of these people that were in your mastermind, you know, you're doing all these amazing things with them, and they were still having a hard time of really, you know, just checking in and closing out all this stuff from their business and being in the moment. So talk about how the mastermind came about. And I had the pleasure of sitting next to you at our first weekend for our mastermind, where you were kind of like really diving in. You know, how did the Work Hard, Play Hard mastermind come about, along with the podcast? And what's the big lesson, not only just from people listening to your podcast, from the mastermind, what's the big lesson that you want people to learn from all of this?
Yeah, well, a couple of things that are hitting me, and then I'll circle back. So the first thing is entrepreneurship on so many levels is an addiction, like any other addiction. And a lot of the struggle I have with probably people who listen to your show are, you know, and people who, you know, love podcasts, love entrepreneurship, love consuming great content, etc. They're not they're not short on work ethic. They love to work. They love to do what they're passionate about in life. And so it gets a little bit muddy, because they'll say, you know, a lot of times I'll interview people for my show and I'll say, what do you do outside of work that lights you up? And the answer that I'll get a lot of times is either crickets, you know, they're just like,
I don't know.
I don't know. Or I get, well, I love my job, or I love what it is that I do. And here's the problem. We are not meant to be, my opinion, we are not meant to be so one-dimensional that all we do is whatever the title is du jour. You know, if I'm a chiropractor, we're not meant to only be a chiropractor. If I do online stuff, if I do network marketing, whatever it is, we are meant to be so much more than that. And inside of them, they know that, but there's always another minute to work. There's always an iPhone, there's always an iPad, there's always a laptop, there's always another mastermind, there's always you know, a dinner party where you talk about business. It never goes away for entrepreneurs. But the research is so clear. I don't care if you break it up by day, where we're not supposed to go 8 hours in a row. We're supposed to work for an hour or so and then take 10 minutes. We have to, if you go back to Stephen Covey, he talks about sharpening the saw. Yeah. If you talk about full engagement, Tony Schwartz, who wrote a book where he found that the best high performers are taking breaks throughout the day. Daniel Pink is talking about, there's so many people that talk about it, but we ignore it. We wake up in the morning, we go to our iPhone, we look at the email, and then boom, it just goes until we go to sleep.
Yep.
So I knew that if I did not have a forced situation that made me stop, I wouldn't. I would just keep going. I would switch chiropractic for something else. And so I said, okay, well, I'm doing this with travel. Every 100 days, I'm getting on the plane, roughly 90 days, 120 days, but on average 100 days. I'm getting on a plane and I'm going somewhere cool. It might be Europe. It might be, like last week we were in New York. But it's always something different. And the focus is for me to do exciting and different things that stimulate my brain, that create new ideas, that create new insight, that recharge my brain, that allow me to get away from my problems and gain perspective, because I'm outside of the mundane of my day-to-day. And so in our masterminds, I thought, well, what if I can use our business masterminds as a platform to help me craft a mastermind for entrepreneurs that are between 6 and 7 figures, where money is not that much of an issue, but their time is an issue in their head. I don't have the time for this. I can't do it. I know I need it, but I don't have the time for it. So deep inside them, they knew that this was something that they needed. So I knew if I could just appeal to that they would be willing to do it. And so I went ahead and crafted a podcast that would speak to that person. But it's a little bit of a Trojan horse, the podcast, because the first half of the show is about business and how they can improve their business. But then the second half of the show is, what are they doing for fulfillment in their life? Tony Robbins talks about the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And it is there is a science to achievement. You teach people things like LinkedIn, and there's a specific science to it. If we do what you tell us to do, we're going to get certain results. There's just no way around that, right?
Right.
But with fulfillment, there's a little bit of a dance. There's a little bit of an art. What does it mean? How do you get fulfillment? So that conversation is what we have in the second part. So I crafted this mastermind, and I do 1 domestic and 2 international. And I can talk about that if you want.
Yeah. So, I obviously my circle, of influence, and you and Kim are absolutely part of my circle of influence. And it's, you're always, the teacher is always the student. So we're always learning, whether it's a podcast, whether reading a book, whether it's being doing a mastermind like we're doing, and now you hosting one. You're probably learning from the people that are in your mastermind, because that's, when you put together this kind of group of people, these big thinkers, these big players, and these big, just dreamers, you can't help but to get dripped on by the people that you're around. So talk about the first, obviously, domestic meeting you guys had for the mastermind that was up in New England, some of the cool things that you did, and what you really found. Because again, you had some 6- and 7-figure earners, some really, really amazing entrepreneurs. What did you notice most that they were, because obviously you were trying to curate an amazing experience for these people, and you did. But talk a little bit about what you did with them, what you kind of set up, but what you ended up learning from them that they took away that you didn't expect.
Well, okay, so I'll give you, it was a jam-packed 3 days, so I won't go into detail with every experience. I'll give you a quick,
the highlights.
I'll give you 3 of them.
Yep.
So one of the things that we did was we took them to Fenway Park. Well, before we went to Fenway Park, we went to this museum called the Gardner Museum, and it's this woman, Isabella Gardner, during the Vanderbilt years. She was worth the equivalent of a couple of $1 billion today, and she had this love affair with art, and she built this palazzo, this like Italian palazzo in the middle of Boston, and she brought Rembrandts and Picassos, and she created this most amazing home where she put this art up. And I knew that all of the people that were in this mastermind are not taking the time to stand in front of a piece of art and learn how to look at a piece of art. They're just not doing it. It's not going to happen. So I wanted to create this masterminds and put them in situations that would allow them to access a different part of their brain than they normally use to stimulate new levels of thinking. Because when you think the same way over and over and over again, you don't get new ideas. And with me traveling around the world, I unconsciously was forcing myself in new environments that were allowing me to think differently than a lot of people because of the experiences I was putting myself in. So I said, okay, well, this is domestic, it's Boston, I'm not taking them to Shanghai, but what can I do in Boston that's going to allow them to think differently? So I thought, okay, well, let's do art, wine, and what's Boston known for? Sports. So I was like, okay, well, how can I craft experiences for these guys that's going to be not making them feel like they're on a 6th grade trip going to a museum, or, you know what I mean? Like, how do I do it so that they still feel cool and they get stimulated? So what I did was I just rented the shit out, and I hired 2 curators to come in, and I spent 2 months working with them on what the experience I wanted them to have was. So for example, we broke into a couple of groups, and we sat there and we stared at this most amazing painting. And so the 20 of us are standing there, and a mutual friend of ours, Chris Harder, is standing next to me, and she's guiding us through this art. And she's like, okay, what do you see? And the ballerina, it was a Spain picture, has her hand like this, right? And so I'm making the sign like the cool sign, right? The Hawaii
Hang ten
sign up like that, right? And so Chris goes, I see the shocker.
Of course he did.
Of course he did. So all of us are breaking up. And so now we're looking at this art. And then she had us move around in different locations. She goes, what do you see? And so we were there. It felt like 2 minutes, but we were there for 25 minutes. And every one of us saw something in the painting that the other person just did not see at all. And so we learned about how to look at things from a different level, right? So I can go on about the museum forever. And then we left there and we went to Fenway Park. And we did a behind-the-scenes tour of Fenway Park, and we went into the batting cages where the visitor team hits balls before they play. Like the Yankees, this is where the Yankees are hitting their balls. And we walked in the room, and I had jerseys made, Red Sox jerseys made with their names hanging in hangers. And now they're not bored. Now they're stimulated. Now they're excited. And then we did a contest, and the contest was whoever can make contact with the most number of balls coming at. They dropped it from 120 miles an hour down to 60 for us. But whoever can make contact with of the 10 balls that you get the most gets an upgraded room at our next event, which is in Monaco in the south of France. Wow. And then we went from there. We went to. We did that night. We went to Boston in the North End, and we had a guy who wrote a book called How to Think Like Da Vinci, and he taught us the principles of how to think like Da Vinci. And as part of his presentation, he did a comparative wine tasting where we started with champagne, and we had to compare one champagne with the other. The idea is that Da Vinci said that you can't fully embrace something unless you have something to compare it to. So he taught us how to compare one thing to the other, and we used that with wine. And while he was giving his presentation, we had books, and we wrote key words down. And at the end of the night, we did a poetry contest. And during the dinner, I hired somebody from the Metropolitan Opera House to come in and sing opera, and she talked to us about how she just blew, it was incredible. And then
Kim said that you hit 7 out of 10 balls. Is that true?
I did. I have a weird talent. I'm not a sports guy at all, but I'm actually talented at sports. It's a weird thing. Yeah. And then the last thing was, I thought, well, Tom Brady just won the Super Bowl. What if we can get Tom Brady's trainer to train us on how he's been able to make this guy dominate in the way he's been doing it using pliability? So he agreed to shut down his facility for us, and we had him and all of his trainers who trained 48 of the 52 people on the Patriots, and they trained us for the morning, and then we did a Q&A with him in the afternoon. Wow. Asking anything. We talked about Giselle, and we talked about challenges he's had with Tom and frustrations. And I can go on. It was 3 days. I can go on forever, but those are the highlights. Those are some highlights.
So what was the biggest lesson that you heard from the people that were there? Like what did they take away that you didn't expect them to?
The individuals were concerned that being mixed into couples was going to feel weird. That was the biggest concern I had going in. I never heard one word after it. Everybody integrated beautifully. So that was the one thing. The other challenge that I had was a week before, and I know I'm going to get it again from Monaco, a week before I started getting phone calls, dude, I'm too busy, I'm not going to be able to go. And I said, get your ass on the plane. You're coming. I am forcing you. I'm grabbing you by the neck. This is what you signed up for. This is what you're making me do. Get your ass on the plane. You know you need this. Do it. Every one of them pushed back but did it. Then when they got there, I got, hey, I'm going to take the morning off. I've got some work I need to do, but I'm going to meet you guys for dinner. I banged on their hotel door and said, get out and come with us, and forced them to do it. And then at the end of it, they're like, dude, I never realized how addicted I am to work. Like, if I didn't have these experiences, I would have missed out so much on the bonding and the connection. And at the end of this, what I realized is that, while in our mastermind, there's some forced bonding experiences that happen, and there's Zoom calls that follow, and, we collaborate together. But there has been collaboration that I got one guy who's investing in another person's company. I got another one who is now taking a trip to Greece together. They're all bonding just because I put the right group of the right people together that I knew would work with each other, and it's just naturally happening. So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that's great. So I want to respect your time in your morning, because I know that, you know, we're actually going to be doing this again in about an hour or so.
Yep.
So for people that aren't in that, so just two last questions, I'm going to let you go. So for people that aren't in the 6 and 7 figure level yet, that may not be able to invest yet in the work hard, play hard mastermind.
Yeah.
What is something that the person can do that's, you know, obviously starting to have success and everything? What is something that the everyday person that's working on growing can do to, you know, replicate what you've put together in your mastermind? So for all the families out there that they're not taking time off from work because they can't afford it, what are some things that people can do to start living more and not just being addicted to work all the time?
Well, it just depends on what the goal is, right? So if the goal is to get from your side hustle that you're doing now to make your side hustle your full hustle, then I think that becomes an evenings and weekends thing. And I think you have to recognize that there are certain chapters in your life. And so as long as you put a goal line on it, where at the end of 12 months, I'm gonna be doing this on evenings and weekends because I have to get myself out of this. But within 12 months, I want to be doing more of this. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, and I recognize that. Phone call. I don't even know how to turn that off.
Yeah, it's okay.
I recognize.
Do not disturb. Do not disturb.
That's what I'll do.
Yep.
I recognize that there are certain seasons of life that people are in, and because of those seasons, that, like, for example, they may be 20 years old. Then they may need to burn the candle at both ends for a few years until they're not. But if you are somebody that is in your 40s and you keep saying, someday I'm going to do this, and that someday never happens, then you have to look at it the other way. And so I think for that person, you have to create some rules. And so for me, the rules are, when I come home at the end of the day, and in my case, I work between 12 and 4. When I come home at 4 o'clock, the phone goes off, and it's just wife and kid time. That's it.
Yep.
And no work on the weekends. None. I don't do any work. Because you could make the argument, you can say, well, if I just checked one email, would that be okay? Like, it just took me 2 minutes. The problem is, checking one email creates this mental bandwidth that your brain is rolling around. And let's be honest, one email turns into 10, right?
Yep.
So you have to have hard, fast rules. So think about, where are the areas of your life that you are not taking the time to recharge, and what would it look like if you did? So for me, the easier ones are a stop time at the end of the day and no work on the weekends. And for you, based on your schedule, there may be some different areas, but I think creating some rules and then having your spouse, girlfriend, significant other help you be accountable for making sure that those rules happen, because the only person that's going to enforce those rules is you.
I love that. So obviously people can subscribe and listen to your podcast, the Work Hard, Play Hard podcast, on iTunes, Google Podcast. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So, and I, you know, obviously I tagged you in this interview. So I definitely, guys, I highly, highly suggest you connect with Robb, follow him on social media, on Instagram, on all platforms. So Robb, how can people directly get in touch with you? How can they learn more about your podcast, about your mastermind? If there's someone that's on here live or on the replay or learning is about you, and if it could be a good fit for them, how can they contact and find you?
Yeah, I respond to every direct message that I get. So on Instagram, it's Robb Murgatroyd. But if that is too difficult to spell, it took me until I was 6th grade to be able to figure out how to spell my last name. I would recommend just going to workhardplayhardmasterminds.com. And if you think you might be a good fit, fill out an application, and we can jump on a phone call and we can talk about it.
All right, so I'll go in and I'll drop the link to your website there, obviously, so people can directly go to it. Last and final question, no wrong answer, because everyone has a different answer for this. So Robb, what does success mean to you?
Doing what I want, when I want, with who I want, as much as I want.
I love that. Short, sweet, simple, and all true. Booby, love you so much.
Love you back, Booby.
So happy that you were able to jump on here nice and early, and I will be seeing you in about an hour on the podcast. And again, Rob, thank you so much for everything that you and Kim are doing for everyone. Grateful for you, thankful for you, and I will talk to you soon.
Talk to you in a bit. Thank you.
Bye, Rob.
Bye-bye.
So guys, as you can see, work-life balance is everything, and you can work hard, but you have to play hard as well. Rob and Kim are a prime example of that. You know, she's doing, amazing things with her business, and Rob is just off and going with his mastermind, his podcast. So don't forget, go to www.workhardplayhardmastermind.com. I will leave it in the comment section below. Guys, enjoy the rest of your mornings. Love you all so much, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.